This episode of the SwitchCast is produced by S. Scott Tilton, our honored patron and Switch Knight.
Hey everybody, I'm KC.
And I'm Sean.
And this is the SwitchCast, the podcast for the Switch enthusiasts who want to hear all about people playing good games on the new hybrid Nintendo Switch console. And with me, yes, this week is a special fill-in guest host. Say hi to everybody, Sean.
Hey, how's it going out there, SwitchCast?
We, actually, JP is with swollen mouth this week as he had to get some... I think he got some wisdom teeth pulled or something like that. And
nasty business.
Last he described himself was his cheeks were swollen like a chipmunk. So as adorable as that might seem, it means he's also in agonizing pain every second. Oh, why don't you tell everyone like who you are and what your deal is here with the SwitchCast? How did we come across you here?
So I picked up the Switch on launch night. I'm another Texan, so we try to keep that close with JV out, just bring another Texan in. We're a dime a dozen. But found the SwitchCast group just looking for things to keep me occupied with my drives and everything. And SwitchCast just happened to be the one with the best community to listen to that I can be active with. So here I am. And you are one of our sworn Switch Knights as well, yes? I think so. I think they still take that out of my paycheck every month.
Okay, yes. And we actually were supposed to have you on the last time I did a solo episode, but we had a few technical difficulties trying to get that all up and running.
Yeah, and I think we're, though, going to be good on this one here.
Yes, in fact, I think you said you bought, like, a new mic the day after that. When that didn't go through, you went out and you bought a mic right after work the next day?
Yeah, I went and wasted money probably on something I didn't need, but decided, hey, if I'm going to want to try and do this again, I want to make sure it works out.
All right, very cool, very cool. I got to get some new sound equipment. Hopefully I'll get some new sound equipment soon, either for Christmas or with some of our patron funded, because I want to improve the sound quality all the time here, and it's always it's always a tricky task, as you've seen. There's so many knobs and digits and widgets to mess with to make it a little better.
Yeah, I could say I don't envy you on that one.
So yeah, tomorrow, or by the time this is up today, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I wanted to bring attention, actually, I've posted online a special mission for anyone who cares to partake. I want to see some Switch giving festivities today. And funny I mentioned this because I actually just before recording, I got a message on Facebook from my goddaughter who messaged me saying, "Hey, can you bring your Switch to Thanksgiving tomorrow? I want to try it out." I think she's considering it as a Christmas gift. And she actually asked if I had one to switch. And I said, I'm here to convince you to buy it, not drive you away. But I said, yes, I'll bring some Mario Kart and some other games. And so I want to see if anyone out there has similar situations or people who have never seen the Switch. Show it to your family. Send some pictures either on Twitter or on Facebook. #SwitchGiving. And I will be happy to share those on our feeds for everyone who does that, that's just like my favorite thing, is spreading the love, evangelizing the system like so.
That's really, I think, the beauty of the system, that it can be, back in the old console days of yore, you couldn't move around like this with Switch, but being able to just take it and anyone can pick it up, that's what makes it a great system for this very thing that you're challenging people to do.
Yeah, it's one thing to tell someone, hey, I got this Xbox 360, I got the Xbox One or whatever, and I have some really good games, you should buy it and join me. It's hard to do that when, the only thing you could do more than that is invite someone over to try it out. Here you could so easily bring it to people, show them how awesome it is, and then they want to have it for themselves and join the fun. Also, speaking of joining the fun, we have actually secured our tickets to PAX East. JV and I are locked, loaded, and we're definitely going to PAX East. So if anyone out there is interested in heading down there, we will totally be scheduling some great time to hang out with you guys at the con. overnight when we're there, just doing some things. So if there's any good Switch crews out there, definitely email me, casey@switchcast.com, or just message me online, and we will definitely start organizing some plans for that. Do you ever go to the PAX events?
Now that I live in down here in San Antonio where they have PAX South, I think I'm going to try and go this year. I haven't ever been close enough to one to go before, but it seems like a great way to see what's going on in the industry and meet other fellow avid gamers and people who just have a shared interest. So I think this year will be the first year I'm going.
Okay, yeah, JV goes to PAX South, and he is a strong proponent of it. It's a little more evenly distributed between video games and tabletop games, but that's still, I'm a big tabletop fan, so that's always awesome as well. And do you have kids or something like that?
Oh, Lord, no. I'm very glad not to yet, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay. I'm just, I know some people, when the kids are the right age, they can bring them down too. And it's a good, it's a good event to enjoy with the family. I'm actually not going for all 4 days of PAX East yet. I can't buy tickets for all 4 days yet, but if I do get a press badge, which I will be applying for, I will consider staying for the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then just sell my Saturday, Sunday tickets that I picked up. So we'll see.
Well, good luck to you there.
Thank you. I'm going to start looking up Airbnbs tonight. And, so I just on a slightly non-Switch gaming topic, though, did you pick up the Animal Crossing for iPhone game that came out today?
So I
did.
At
least came out North America, at least.
Yeah, unlike those who go and make fake Australian accounts, I decided to be patient and wait for it to come out, and picked it up yesterday, and I gotta say, I'm impressed. Wasn't sure what we were going to be getting out of it, but it is definitely I'd say a full Animal Crossing experience, but it has the full Animal Crossing atmosphere to it. It gives you that feel of what you would do in, say, New Leaf or anything, and it feels good to have it on a mobile device, because that's where Animal Crossing really shines and belongs, like this.
It does feel like a natural fit for it. Yes, he is referring to me, who made my Australian account so I could play this game a couple of weeks ago. I will say that I've already cycled in and kind of cycled out of it, only because it scratches pretty much the same kind of itch I get from Stardew Valley, and I want to go fishing, I want to give people gifts, I want to, do this or that, decorate my house. That's all stuff I already kind of do on there. And while it is cool to have it on my iPhone for a lot faster access, I'm just so committed to my Stardew Valley that anytime I turn on Pocket Camp, I'm just like, I'd rather be expanding my house. I could have a kid in the next year if I really work at getting that hardwood going, But you are enjoying the game so far. Do you think you'll be playing it, or do you think it's a kind of game that you might phase out of after a week?
I think it's going to be kind of like how I've pulled Pokemon Go as well. It's one of those, if I'm thinking about it, if I'm sitting there, I'll open it up, take 5 minutes, go and give some people some gifts, maybe start trying to make a new item, because that's the whole thing about this game, is it's all time-based anyway, so it's something to pick up, do a couple things, and forget about it until you get that notification later. And so it'll be kind of an on and off.
I just wonder if this means we're not going to have a proper Animal Crossing for Switch anytime soon,
And who knows, there's still a lot of things that Nintendo definitely hasn't said in regards to 2018, and I think they still have a lot up their sleeves of what they can be dropping on us, and then we even have 2019 to look forward to as well, being a year optimistic here. I
do think that this means that we have to wait at least 6 months to a year before a Animal Crossing can hit Switch, because I don't think they would overlap the IPs that close to each other, not like, they don't want to saturate it while people are just kind of getting into Animal Crossing on their iPhone. Maybe they're starting to buy some purchases in the game, and then they're like, oh, well, let me drop this now that there's the full-fledged one on Switch. You know what I'm saying?
No, I completely agree with that.
So, anyway, let's talk about some of the actual Switch games that we have been playing this week, and shift gears into the game time. Right, Sean, as our guest, I think it is our prerogative to give you the first dibs on covering a game that you want to talk about that you've been playing for this week's Game Time.
Oh, man. Well, there has been a lot of them I've been playing. That's the nice thing about the Switch is, right, like I said, right now we're getting into that time where they are just making releases after releases, But I think right now the biggest one I've been playing is actually one of the oldest games, older games that's on Switch right now, is Skyrim. And I gotta say, I've been really loving it. I remember picking up Skyrim when it came out back on November 11th, 2011. So quite some time ago, I went to the midnight release of that. I've owned it for every console. I joke this was the 6th time I've bought it.
Really?
Yeah, Bethesda has me hooked on this game. And if you would have asked me back in 2011, hey, you think you could play this on the go? I wouldn't have thought so after playing it, and it just always got more and more beautiful, and with all the updates and DLCs they've made, and having it on the Switch, it really did bring me back to playing it in 2011 when I was having to play it on my Xbox in between classes in college. Definitely Bethesda's done a great job with this. Of course, it's not the full experience like you used to have on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One without having the added bonus of the workshop or anything, but even still, it's on the go, and it's a AAA title that you can sink hundreds upon hundreds of hours into and always finding new things to do. So I'm definitely impressed with it.
So, alright, so let's pretend that some of the people don't know what Skyrim's all about, and just give a brief explanation of the game, just short enough not to bore the people who have played this 5 times already, but enough to enlighten our listeners who may have never really paid attention to this Elder Scrolls series before.
All right, yeah, so for people who've never played before, Skyrim, what it is, it's the 5th installation into the Elder Scrolls series. They're not really connected. Some of the lore does connect, but you can pick one up and be fresh into it. And this one takes place in the realm of Skyrim, which is a harsh, cold world where dragons have come back. And that's the whole purpose of the game, is you find out you are this individual called the Dragonborn, and you're going out trying to discover why are the dragons coming back, collecting their souls, using them to collect powers, and then on top of that, it's a living RPG world. There's different factions you can join. You can be a band of assassins, you can join a thieves guild, a fighting guild, and you're also in the middle of essentially a civil war. And you go in, it's your basic RPG elements. You level up, unlock level skills. You can choose to be a wizard, a fighter, a, sneaky alchemist, or a sneaky assassin going around and stealing things. And so the world is yours, and you get to build your character how you see fit to play, which also helps bring back that playability, because you're going in there, you might play one day and go and find a cave off in the distance, but then the next day you're playing, you're going and you're in a old castle fighting ancient robotics that were made by an ancient civilization. And so that's what Skyrim is just this open, living, breathing world where you get to decide how and what you're going to do and how you're going to do it.
Now, a lot of people have given the skepticism that, look, I've already bought this game, I don't need to buy it again on Switch. Now you are the Now you are the antithesis of that. You've bought this now 6 times. What makes the game so replayable that you want to go into it this many times over and over again? And it's not a short game anytime you've done it, right? It's like,
by all means.
I imagine you put at least 40 hours in per playthrough, if not 100.
I remember my first time I ever did a playthrough, I was racking in about 250 hours before I even beat what you'd call the main storyline. That's the whole thing. So you can play through it a couple times. As I say, there's a civil war. You can choose what side you want to play on. You can choose who you align yourself with. Even in the main story with the whole dragon arc, there's 2 sides to that. So you can literally play through the game and get these 2 different ways of playing it. Plus, on top of that, like I said, you get to design everything from the ground up. So the race of, the character you choose, you can choose to be what's called the Khajiit, which are a cat race people, or Argonians, which are a lizard race, or there's all these different humanoid races. Each of them have their own pluses and minuses that change how you would want to play the game. And on top of that, too, you have all the different classes that you can play as. So, as I said, right now I'm trying to play more as a mage. I've never done that before. Normally I play as a assassin type, playing in the shadows. This time I'm having to get more up close on people because of having to use spells on them. And so it just changes what you do. And because of that, you can always have a new experience. No two playthroughs are going to be the same.
Now, what have you noticed in the terms of how different is it from the other console versions you've played, good and bad wise?
So definitely, we'll kind of on the lesser side, it is not as graphically appealing as, say, playing on an Xbox One or PlayStation 4. There's no getting around that. You see some lighting differences. And if you get up close on items and on the terrain, it's not as sharp. The draw distance isn't there either. And as I mentioned before too, you don't have things like the workshop, which is a mod center, because Bethesda was one of the first the first to bring modding as a mainstream into their game. You could literally download people's mods on the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. That's not here, of course. But then on the other side, it still holds up. It's just as appealing as I would say a little bit, moderately better looking than, say, the Xbox 360 PS3 versions of the game. It's still aesthetically pleasing. Playing it in the handheld mode, which I primarily play in handheld, it's gorgeous on, the smaller screen. I haven't seen it yet on my television, but that's because mostly I'm using my Switch while I'm watching TV or something. Sound-wise, I haven't noticed any issues with the sound. I've noticed they do have are working on a patch apparently for some issues with that, but it still sounds good. You can hear everything, and it still has that breathing world, as I mentioned before. And so definitely that, and plus on top of that, they did release the special edition, so it has all the DLCs that have been released. Everything is there, but now in a handheld package. So, we're talking about quite a few gigs of a game into the Switch. It's definitely a SIM card eater, though. That's the other big issue with it.
Oh, right. So you're going to probably want to have an extra memory card on standby for this.
Yeah, you're definitely I had to go out and actually buy a larger memory card. I was still running on a small 32 gig, and with this and buying, and LA Noire was the other one. Those both ate up quite a bit of my space, so I did go out and splurge for a larger memory card.
Very, very cool. Now, I just remember two of the expansions that came out in the past. Tell me if those are involved. There was one where there's the whole werewolf thing that can happen, where you could become a werewolf and you have to live with that as part of your character, and you can find a cure for it and just roll with it.
So yeah, the werewolf was actually part of the main game, if I remember correctly. What they released, there was the Dawn Guard was one of the first ones they released, and that was probably a good 10-20 hour story arc involving vampires and fighting vampires or siding with them. They also released a smaller DLC called Dragonhearth, if I remember right. Basically, that one is your kind of a home building game, because you can buy houses in the game, but there's not a lot of customization. But this let you actually find there's plots of land that you could actually build a house on, and you got to choose everything from a menu. How do you want it to look? And you would go gather the resources to build it. And then the final one, and that was kind of for aesthetics once again. And that also added child adoption that you could have in the game as well. But then and the final one was the Dragonborn DLC. And what that is, they added a whole new map, a small island that was actually from the Morrowind days of Elder Scrolls. But they added a small island, and basically you're going on a whole quest to fight a previous Dragonborn who denounces your existence and wants you killed. And that was another easily 30-40 hour story arc there.
Shoot, yeah. Now, terms of size, to give maybe some sort of point of comparison for our listeners, how big is the world in comparison to, let's say, the Hyrule from Breath of the Wild?
So Breath of the Wild, there was actually someone at one point did make that comparison, and the world of Skyrim compared to the Breath of the Wild, it is a smaller world. I will say that at the time it was fairly large, but it is smaller than Hyrule. But at the same time, it doesn't feel it, because in Hyrule, one of the big things was you could climb anything, and there was ways to get around no matter what. But in Skyrim, you're doing a lot more. While you can unlock fast traveling, you can't just scale a mountain. You got to walk around that mountain. And I would definitely say Hyrule felt, as much as I love Breath of the Wild, it was a kind of an empty world. It was kind of running from shrine to shrine. Here, you're walking, and then you'll see it pop up on your radar. Oh, what's that over there? And so it takes longer to get places, but it is a smaller world.
Okay. And to answer maybe a suspicion I had when Zelda first came out with the Switch, do you think these two games would have been competing titles had they came out like simultaneously? And do you think now is like the right time for it to come out and not have that problem?
I definitely think they chose the right time to come out with this. They chose after Super Mario, after Zelda. Let those games get their shine. I think Bethesda knows on a Nintendo system, Mario is king, Zelda is queen. Those literally are going to be your two big games. Now, would I say they compete with each other? I don't think so. I think they both feel they have different facets that they fit into. Zelda is your adventure game. It is your coming of a hero coming up into his spot. And it's a pure adventure game where you're playing for a story. While Skyrim, on the other hand, it's an RPG. So it's more of, instead of you reading about a story, it's you making your story. And so it does have it fits in a different spot, and it fills a different hole than what Zelda would fill, per se.
All right, very cool. So overall, I assume this is a game that you would recommend, or you would recommend for certain types of players or people who are fans of the genre.
I would definitely say so. I definitely think Bethesda has gotten the RPG system down. Everyone always says they have all these bugs in their games and everything, and yes, all games are going to have bugs. But at the end of the day, Skyrim is one of the most critically acclaimed RPGs that has come from an American company, I believe. And it does an excellent job in filling that RPG role of being this large RPG world on the Switch.
Outstanding. Very, very cool. It's very, I also want to bring up these comparisons because the game I was playing this week is in the same, I guess I want to say, extended family as the Skyrim and Zelda, but it's really goes back to the roots. I'm playing Ittle Dew 2, which is, I would call this the modern day Zelda 1. That is what this feels like to me. Ittle Dew 2 is like if someone took, basically was trying to make the original Legend of Zelda with today's power, graphics, sense of design, and just a little bit of humor. I was very surprised by this game. I had no idea what it was when I picked it up, and I just started playing it. And it's a pretty funny little story. I don't know. I assume there's an Ittle Dew 1 out there that was probably like a Steam game somewhere, but I don't think you need to know what that was to enjoy this one. And you play this girl who is a little adventurer with her little pet, this flying fox guy who is her sidekick in this, and she's on a raft in the middle of the ocean, and they're like dying and starving, and then she somehow wakes up in the middle of a little pond in the middle of an island somehow. Whatever. They don't really ask questions about it. And they get off, and they're starving, and they're like, hey, how do we get off this island? And some guy's like, oh, you're going to need to find pieces of a raft around this island in order to escape it. And they're like, couldn't we just chop down a tree and make a raft out of those? No, that's not the adventurer way. You have to go around and find pieces of a raft in dungeons.
So they sound like they try and do some tongue-in-cheek making fun of the outrageous quests and everything that you have to go on in these adventure games.
Absolutely. They are absolutely having fun with the genre. I mean, the first dungeon is literally enemies who fight you with little those little foam doodles you have at the pool, those things, the noodles. Mm-hmm. They attack you with Nerf swords basically, and it's called they even go in. They say this is definitely a tutorial dungeon, isn't it? And you're like, yep, this is it. And everything is covered in pillows, it's like a safety world. And that said, the game is extremely open for exploration even in a better way than the original Zelda, in that you can just go around this island wherever you want, and there's a little rule they teach you. If you can enter a dungeon, if you are able to find your way into a dungeon, you can beat it with whatever items you have or items that you will find in there. So, if you need the equivalent of a hook shot, you'll need to use that hook shot just to get in a dungeon. But if you were able to find your way in there without that, you have what you need to beat it. You don't have to tinker around and just be like, maybe I'm missing something I have to get from the 8th dungeon, So they encourage you to explore, even though messing around in far-flung corners of this island, you're gonna face some very tough monsters. Like, just insane things start coming at you that deal a lot of damage, things that can surprise you and have, like, it's just very tense.
So it sounds like, I guess, you can kind of make your own, difficulty scale. Kind of like with Breath of the Wild, the people who would just run straight into the castle after getting off the Great Plateau. It sounds like you can just kind of make your own difficulty scale and make your own challenges if you want to.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, and the penalty for dying is not huge. You just get sent back to the beginning of, like, that section of the map. So you don't just get knocked out of the dungeon you're in. You'll go back to, like, the entrance to that, like, area. But it's not that big a deal because you can pretty quickly find your way back to said dungeon there. And yeah, definitely, I got very hooked on this one section that there's just these floating eyes that shoot missiles at me, and you have to do a lot of dodging and rolling, and since I have a crummy wooden stick as my sword, I have to whack them 50 times, but I like the challenge of it, and I like knowing that if I can just skill through this if I want to, and maybe end up with a OP item before I go back to the easier dungeons. And there's lots of little extra things to find. The areas are really cool design. They all have a very nice theme. Like, there's this one section that's like a star forest or something like that. Like, everything glows really cool, and there's really cool kind of like rave music going on with it. You can find costumes. You change your costume. The monsters are all really cool. They're very varied. You really don't see too many palette swaps. And there's just different hidden dungeons everywhere. Like, you'll talk to people, they'll give you a scroll and say, oh, somewhere there's a new dungeon opened up. Even if it's just like one room with a puzzle, that's what sometimes counts as a dungeon. Even though there's main dungeons with like bosses and a few more things to do, but they call every little time you go in a cave a dungeon, and you can unlock like tons of them to do.
And this is from Nicalis, isn't it?
Yes, they are the publisher.
Okay.
And I think this was the little indie thing that was out. Like I said, I assume there's an Ittle Dew one of some sort. But listeners, please write in to tell me I'm wrong if that's the case. But yeah, and like I said, the humor and the characters are just really fun. And the combat's very smooth. I like the animation. It kind of looks like Toon Link kind of art.
Mm-hmm.
It has that feeling, but again, it's the top-down Legend of Zelda type of action. And I just liked everything about it. It's very hard to put down, and it's just great to play a very free exploration kind of game like this. Oh, right, and this is my favorite joke that actually happened in the game. There's like just some building I go into, and there's a stop sign, and it just like, don't go in the back room of this building. And they say, I guess there's nothing important back there anyway. And you could see, since you're watching above, it's just a pile of rafts and like life preservers and supplies to go on the ocean. It's just the stupidest thing. Like, this ordinary item is just, of course it's just going to be around, but nope, you got to go across this continent and fight giant monsters just to build a stinking raft. Love it. So yeah, Ittle Dew 2. What else you been playing?
The other big game I've been playing outside of, what everyone else, Stardew Valley and everything, but the other big one I've gotten back into was Rocket League.
Right.
Everyone's favorite esport game that has just come to the Switch. What was it, last week, I think? Or maybe it was about 2 weeks ago. But, no, it was last week. Definitely is another great one. Another one I've bought multiple times now, but which seems to be a reoccurring thing with the Switch for me, at least. But definitely it's been a fun game. It's proved itself well on the Switch. Definitely can see some differences when it comes to graphics, but otherwise everything plays the same. I thought it was a great move for them to bring Rocket League to the Switch, because even in the professionals, they do play with controllers. It is a controller-based game, even being from the PC originally, so it fit right in with the Switch, and I see it as a great way to constantly be able to play and hone your skills, because that's one game that you can play and get all. They have different rankings, but at the end of the day, your ranking may not mean much because it just is a sign of how long you've played sometime. But a game like this, where you actually have to practice and try different things, having it on the go with you and not having to pull out your computer, plug in your controller and everything, and have a power source, all that, it definitely has shown that it has a home on the Switch and it belongs here.
I mean, what are the controls? I mean, is it just gas, brake, steering, and like a boost?
It actually has a very deep control system. So you have, I would kind of like in other games you might see walking controls, driving controls. This game almost has what I would consider a set of ground controls and air controls, because if you ever watch videos or gameplay of this, there's a lot of air time sometimes. And so you can have these buttons luckily overlap, since button space on a controller, the property is much more valuable than say on a computer where you have a full keyboard. But you may have a button for your boost, you have a power slide button, you have your accelerator, reverse, and your controlling and your jump button. But then while you're in the air, you may have buttons so that you can tweak your the nose of your car up and down, or your pitch and yaw and all that, to allow you to have a little bit more control and stability to help you get those aerial hits that you're trying to get as well.
Okay.
They also, another thing to add on though, with the control, they have made it so that you can play single control. The controls are simple enough to where if you want to have you can play and share the joy mode essentially, and do your 2-player split screen or your 4-player split screen on the TV.
Okay, and does that look like it's coming out in 60 or 30 frames per second?
It is playing at 60. That was the big thing that they wanted to do, from what I know and what I remember. It is playing at 60 frames per second. Of course, if I'm wrong, someone will definitely tweet and say that I'm wrong. I'm sure. But that was the thing. They took a hit to the graphic so they can make sure that it does play at that 60 frames per second.
Okay, very good. Yeah, that seems very important for especially any esport type title like this here. And who have you been playing mostly? Has it been people that you know, randos? Have you been playing people in the chat?
Right now, since I haven't had much time to play a lot of multiplayer, I've been playing a lot more of the single player, just getting back into the groove of playing. Because it's one of those games where if you stop playing for a while, you kind of forget what you're doing, and then you have to try and but it's like riding a bike at the same time. You don't always forget everything. You'll remember some of it, but some of those little minute skills of tweaking things just right and making sure you hit it just right, those things you can forget if you don't play all the time.
Okay, I gotcha. Again, it all takes place. It's pretty straightforward. It's always on the same kind of field, and it's either 1-on-1 or 2-on-2, or is there 3-on-3 also?
So 3-on-3 is the standard from what I know. It's what I generally play is 3-on-3. 2-on-2, you'll see some doubles. I've heard, and I've never really played 1-on-1. I've never been a big fan of it. It's kind of it's kind of like playing I don't even know how to explain it. It's kind of a little bit to me, it doesn't have as much excitement because you don't have that team build. Because some of the chaos comes from you hitting the ball and then one of your teammates accidentally getting in the way and ruining your perfect shot. That chaos that's in it. And then there is a 4-on-4, which I've heard confirmed or referred to as pure chaos of 8 people driving around. And then there's also other game modes. I think that
might be one step too much.
Yeah. And then there are other game modes in there, like a basketball and a hockey style game as well.
Okay. And you said you played this much on PC before?
I have played on PC and on the PlayStation with this one, so it's another one that I've picked up multiple times because depending on how I'm wanting to play.
Okay, and so why did you pick it up on the Switch after having it on those consoles?
And it kind of comes back to the same thing with Skyrim and also just with where I'm at right now. I don't get to play much more on my console like I used to, and so I'm always traveling around for one reason or another. So having it on the Switch and having that capability to play these games that I've enjoyed in the past is much more convenient with the Switch rather than me going out and buying, say, a portable TV that I can put in a backpack and playing my PlayStation wherever I go, or playing on my computer, which I have to make sure I'm having plugged into a wall.
Okay, very cool. And this is a pretty cheap title compared to other things, right? It's like what is it?
I think it came out at $30. I could be wrong on that, but I would call it a competitive pricing.
No, that sounds like really fun. Like I said, everybody's already been excited in the Discord chat. We have a special channel for it. It's really hopping, and then they're already talking about making teams in a way that has more energy than Splatoon or Pokken has gotten yet. So it's taken off. It's really taken off.
It'll be a trickle down. We'll just trickle it down to those other games now that we have Rocket League.
We'll see. Actually, I've been getting some probably false hope, but I've been getting hope again that we will see Pocket Rumble again in the near future. Just a lot of tweets recently about it's coming soon, but we don't want to say any specific dates because people got too angry with us. I'm just really hoping that comes out soon because now that I've been playing Pokken so much, and I actually mastered a three character team for the triples battles. And I play randos and I play some people who come to my Switch Fest, but no one really in the community's gotten into it that much. So I feel like, because, I think it is just a little bit more commitment than something like ARMS or something like Rocket League to get competent at. So I'm kind of hoping for, now that I have the bug, I have a fighting game bug. I need to play and I need to compete with people. I'm hoping Pocket Rumble comes out and it's this cheap, easy to get into fighting game that maybe that will fill that niche for me. Or maybe I should just jump into Rocket League. I don't know.
Well, there's a car for you if you do come in.
That's true. I kind of need, though, something one-on-one because, I need to know if I'm winning or losing because of me or because of my teammates. And you always have that syndrome where you always think, it was their fault. I played perfectly. It's always my teammates' fault that I lose. You lose in a fighting game, it's on you. Well, in a non-fighting game thing, the last thing I want to talk about today that I got to play this week is I supposed to play this earlier, but I was on vacation when I got the code, and this is the game I wanted to play for Halloween because it's the Creep Fest kind of scary, disturbing game with the pixel graphics called the Count Lucanor. This was a pretty popular game on Steam, and they brought it over here. This is like a Grimm fairy tale that you get to kind of participate in. It's very cool. It starts out with this, I say it has the pixel graphics for the gameplay, but it has this really beautiful art for the cutscenes that still is pixely, but it looks like a full cinematic, very well animated, full screen, cutscenes. And it's just this gorgeous kind of juxtaposition between the purely like 8-bit graphics of the gameplay, and then they just kind of expound upon it with these like cutscenes that really add some color and flavor to it. That they look like they could be like anime scenes, but again, still pixely. But the game is you're this 10-year-old boy who is tired of being poor, and his dad has been, has disappeared long ago, and the mom can't afford to get you gifts or anything on your birthday, so you kind of have a hissy fit, and you're like, I'm out of here, I'm going to go on adventures, and I'm going to get rich on my own, or something like that. And so you leave, and you start wandering through the forest, and along the way, you meet some characters that are all, like, asking you for something. Like, there's an old lady who's like, oh, my cane broke, can you give me yours? Otherwise wolves will eat me tonight. And you get a few of these other little people. And eventually you find this castle, this mysterious castle in the middle of the forest that supposedly is the home of this Count Lucanor, who is looking for an heir. And if you can pass his trials, you will inherit all his fortune and you'll be wealthy and powerful. The only thing is, so the main trial is he has this servant, this little blue imp guy who is the one who leads you to the castle, and you have to guess his name. And it's a very fairy tale kind of story. To guess his name, you have to go explore the castle. There's all these rooms with different puzzles. There's traps. And after a certain time, there are these dark specters who start roaming the halls, and they all start drawing you in and start like attacking you if they see you. The halls are all super dark, so your only defense, you don't fight in this game, so your only real defense is you can place candles, and you have a finite number of them, but you could place them around the hallways so you could see around certain areas. But if it's like a hallway you haven't visited yet, you have to go really carefully because you don't know, you might just walk right into one of these specters who comes and eats your face or something. But all these very disturbing things start happening as you're exploring it. Like, while you were wandering through the forest, you met like this goat herder who you could give him some food because he forgot to bring lunch with him. And you'll meet him in the castle, but it's just his decapitated head, and his goats carry him around everywhere, and they're just running around chanting stuff. Or there's this man who's been transformed into a pig, but you can see him as just a man, even though he's still just this naked dude on all fours who like eats stuff off the floor. Like, it's really weird kind of stuff like that. And yeah, and it has this very creepy vibe, and you start discovering the story of who Count Lucanor is. You try to find the imp's name. And there's several different endings depending on what you do or who you help. The interesting thing is all those characters I say you meet on the pathway there, depending on who you help and who you don't, you get different tools to take on the missions. I won't spoil anything, so it's not like there's like a purely good or bad decision to help or not help anyone, but it's just like if you help this person, they will later give you this useful thing. But if you didn't help them, that means you kept some other useful thing that will, make your gameplay, that might make certain puzzles easier or might give you a different ending option. It was all really cool. If you can get into this, like I said, it has a lot of disturbing things. There's a lot of blood. It's definitely a grim fairy tale in the purest sense, in that like bad things can happen to little kids going into strange men's castles. But I was very satisfied. I already beat it. I got a couple of different endings, and you could play through it again. It's not too bad to play through it. Like, it might be worth 1 or 2 playthroughs. It's a cheap game though, so you'll get a couple of playthroughs and be done. And pretty satisfying little story, of the Count Lucanor.
All right. Well, that does sound like going. So it's good to hear that it has that replayability to it, because that's definitely something that's nice to have, and makes you feel like you get your money's worth out of it.
Yeah. Because like I said, if you have the different tools, like what was a really easy puzzle the first time might be a much harder puzzle if you don't have that specific tool with you the second time. The only problem I have though is like you move so slowly in this game. Like your character always is walking at this like very timid pace, and there are times where you have to dodge traps or outrun a monster, and you're just like, go a little faster.
Well, KC, there's giant shadow people walking around. I'd be a little timid too.
The sound though is really like, it knows how to scare you with like just beautiful use of sound. Like these phantoms are nearby just by hearing like in the background, or you'll hear these like ungodly groans of some monstrosity that's hidden in the darkness. And since it's, like I said, you can't see everything, it's only around where there's candles, you might just see like a leg of this monster out the corner of your eye. And part of your curiosity wants to go and see what the heck was that thing. Then part of you's like, no, if I get close enough to see it, it will eat me. So you go the other way. And you might go and never see that entire monster that's lurking around in the darkness. But you don't want to see it. And it's a really good use of that. And there's a couple times, I wouldn't say it's a jump scare, but there's just sometimes where they change the volume where it's like really quiet. And then you walk into a room and it's loud because there's some machinery and it's really jarring. And it's like, oh, okay. It just kind of catches you off guard. It's beautiful.
So definitely a headphone type of game if you're going to be playing it.
Oh, if you're playing it on the go, I 100% say with the headphones. You're missing out. This is a game that I tried to play only at home and only at dark with the lights off for full effect. But I did play it on the train a couple of times because New York trains are scary as it. So anyway, all right, so that's everything we played. Let's go into the news rundown and tell everybody what's up, yo. So, first off, we have gotten a lot of information about the next big series of Splatoon updates that are coming throughout the holiday season. And we're talking about new arenas, new hairstyles, 140 pieces of new equipment. I think I saw a champagne gun or something like that. A whole new game mode called Clam Blitz. This was actually pretty cool. This is some mode where you have to go and you'll collect little clams and you have to get them into a goal on your opponent's side. But you also need like a big clam to bust open their like goal so you can deposit the clams that you've collected and that are following you as you're there. So it's kind of an interesting. It's like reverse capture the flag. It's like you're capturing things so you could deposit them in your opponent's side.
Mm-hmm.
And they showed off a lot of new music. There's going to be new battle music and elsewhere. They have these two bands that they showed off called The Bottom Feeders and Ink Theory. Ink Theory has this kind of a jazzy sound to them. They're pretty, a little modern. And then we have the Bottom Feeders, which are more punk, more battles music. And they have this really cool album cover and everything with it. And you could listen to some of that music. I'll definitely use that as the transition leading to this here. And it just looks like a ton of stuff. And we're beginning the first batch of it this weekend. And it's going to be more coming up throughout the couple of weeks leading up to the end of the year. So it's a huge dump of extra stuff.
Oh, and that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear they're adding some more, because I know adding more gameplay style, because I know that was one thing that I had, when I was playing, that people were saying, they had one preferred gameplay over another, and so it kind of got stagnant, it seemed. So that they're adding some new gameplay to try and refresh things up and to keep it moving along, that sounds like it's going to help maybe even bring some people back into playing. I know I've been out of Splatoon for a bit, but having something else to jump into maybe what brings me back in there.
Yeah, that's exactly it. People drift. We're playing other games. No one can blame you. You're going to try some of the games. Something new pops up, and it brings you back, and it makes you try the game up again, which really extends the life and makes you happier with the purchase. The new locations, actually, they look like there was like a supermarket stage and a museum. And I also saw that there's going to be another stage for the, what's that co-op mode called again?
Oh wow, I just lost it too. Salmon Run.
Yeah, the Salmon Run. It's going to have a new stage as well, which is something I've been trying to get people at work to play Salmon Run with me. No one remembers to bring their Switch. I don't know why. And I've been trying to get them to play Salmon Run. I think it would be a really cool thing to do with some coworkers. I just gave up. But when this comes back out, I might try it again because I have renewed interest in Salmon Run. Because I did get to play it enough that I was like, okay, I kind of mastered this. I got all the bonuses you can get from Salmon Run, but I'll definitely try it again when there's a new stage to get going with it.
And so I guess next we want to hop into, we have a Breath of the Wild update coming up. It's actually already live. This is update 1.3.4, which from what we know on it, from what's kind of been released, it's just some fixes to the gameplay. But probably what we're looking at here is they may be getting things ready, laying out the groundwork, getting tidying up the software to get ready, because we do have the Champions Ballad DLC coming out next month. We just got, I know, the 4 amiibos here a couple weeks back, and so they're trying to get everything ready they can for this brand new DLC and story that they're going to be releasing here in December for Breath of the Wild.
Very cool. Also, in update news, we have Blaster Master is getting a new update, with the main feature being a multiplayer mode. And this looks really cool because it's a lot of these competitive stuff people could do in both the top-down action mode, like little dueling arenas where you, not just as Jason, I think is the character's name, but you can use the other expansion characters like the Galgun characters, or that guy from the lightning abilities.
Not Blaze Blue.
Azure Striker Gunvolt.
There we go.
Yes, and Shovel Knight's in there. And not only is it the top-down mode, it looks like there's some side view mode as well, where you're going to be jumping in and out of the tank even during the fights, and there'll be platforming action to be had there as well.
So this isn't so far to say as a co-op, it's more of a PvP kind of gameplay they're adding.
Everything I see in the trailer is a PvP thing. So yes, It looks like, and this is a free update. It is available the 23rd, so that is the day that we're posting this episode. It's the Blaster Battle mode, and seems like a fun way to get some other people to, and breathe a little more life into this game that, again, like we were saying with Splatoon, people play other games, you throw an update with one new mode, and now you're suddenly playing it again.
And speaking of updating, we actually have another update coming with ARMS here in version 4.0, bringing in the Party Crash mode. What it looks like here is it's kind of it's a time party mode that's going to be even how they're explaining it as a Splatfest feel to them is how I've seen it explained. And what it looks like is, I guess you'll be able to hop in, and for this first one, you can either play as Spring Man or Ribbon Girl, and be fighting for stardom. The Battle for Stardom is the event's name, and it looks like you get to hop in and you'll get points as you play during certain times, and so it is on a schedule. And if you use one of two characters during the event window, you'll get multipliers for experience points. And so it seems that's kind of what it's going to be. Is it's going to be almost kind of like your fantasy versus sci-fi that we just had with Splatoon, but it's going to be Springman versus Ribbon Girl, and seeing who will come out on the battle on top.
Yeah, actually, that's pretty cool. So it's kind of, I think it's going to play out similar to how we had the, like when we had the test punch, you'd go into that group, that little, where you'd be playing with other people online, and, you'll get matched up into either 3-player, 2-player, side game stuff. You're going to win, you're going to earn points, and yes, you'll get the bonuses, like you said, if you're playing with those certain characters, and I'm sure you'll be able to use those points to either unlock more weapons or some sort of extra bonus at the end of it. Yeah, it's a pretty cool way to turn on the excitement for a game like this, and to get people playing it. If they schedule these, especially they schedule these in between the weeks when there's no Splatfest, I can definitely see people always making time to play one of these two games on every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a smart move. I think it's a smart move. All right, into other news. This is actually pretty funny. Someone on Reddit ranked the Nintendo Switch games based on their battery usage. And there's this pretty cool little chart that you can check out, and we'll have a link to it in the show description. And you can see how long different games will last, whether you have it on full brightness, low brightness, whether it's on Wi-Fi mode or not. And you could just generally see how many minutes and hours you can expect each game to last. And interesting to note, the game that has the longest battery life of all is Disgaea 5 Complete.
Wow.
Yeah, that is the longest battery life. It looks like, it has the longest average battery life. It looks like it goes to about 425 minutes on average there. Kamiko, with low brightness and airplane mode, actually lasts the longest of all of them, capping out at 450 with all those features turned off there. 450 minutes. And the shortest lifespan is Fast RMX, which can at best last about 200 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that's still a good bit of time, I'd say. Even at 200 minutes running, who's going to sit down and play for that long without being near some kind of power source? And so it does work out well.
So some of the other those things that were interesting to note, Breath of the Wild, it's kind of on the low end, understandable. But actually, Monopoly lasts shorter than Breath of the Wild. It actually guzzles more power than Breath of the Wild. One more reason for us to gripe and thrust our fist into the air at Mr. Uncle Pennybags over there. Anyway, like I said, I'll link to that on here. It's just kind of good. And you know what? This is actually not a bad little chart to use when planning your play sessions for either a commute or a long plane ride. And you kind of get an idea of how much time you could spend with certain titles.
And if push comes to shove, you can be like me and just go out and buy you an extra battery, and then you're set for a lot of things.
Yeah, I do need to get that. Not only for my Switch, but I need that for my Pokemon Go playing on my iPhone.
That's another power guzzler there.
Yes, it is.
In some recent news here, we do have the results from the Game of the Year here at the 2017 and Golden Joystick Awards. The 2017 Golden Joysticks Awards. Zelda Breath of the Wild won the Game of the Year. Now this, I was a little bit kind of worried by seeing both Zelda and Mario going up against each other head to head once again, like a classic Smash Bros. Battle. I was worried that we may see those split the votes and seeing a different game, say like Horizon Zero Dawn for PlayStation 4 taking it, which all the games that were put up, I have to say, were gorgeous and in their own rights deserving of the titles that they were nominated for. But it was nice to see that even with two Switch games being nominated for Game of the Year, Zelda still came out on top. And it just shows that Nintendo is coming back and they mean business with the Switch.
Yes, they also gave an award to Nintendo as the Developer of the Year. And Zelda also won for the musical score of its game. And pretty strong showing. I wasn't sure if Mario had made it to release in time to be considered for these, but yes, you are right. It did get in there. I'm still curious to see what the fans are going to think. So I am going to post this weekend. Actually, if anyone's interested, check out this Sunday. I will post a poll that'll be running throughout the month of December, and it's going to be our Players' Choice Awards, basically, for the SwitchCast, and you can vote for various topics of which game you think is the best music, overall, action, RPG, whatever, for the Switch, and we will combine those results with JV and my picks for the year in our end of the year SwitchCast Awards. So definitely check that out. I will post it. I'll add a link to that in the descriptions once that is up as well. Also in the news, so Square Enix, if anyone remembers taking that Project Octopath Traveler survey that they posted up after the demo, they just made a little comment on that because they've closed down the people being able to respond to that now. And turns out about 45,500 people responded, and they were very impressed with that results. And they've made a few comments, and I just thought it was interesting that in their response, they mentioned that they are going to be trying to take people's opinions into account in how the game develops going forward, which makes me curious, how much of the game can you edit at this point? I mean, it's not, it's not coming out tomorrow, sure, but it's not coming out like a year from now. So I'm just curious what kind of aspects the players' feedback will be able to influence in there.
And I think on that, it's going to be some of the more minor things that can be added. I've heard people complaining such things like skipping cutscenes. So something that you're not going to be changing the play style of the game, but rather adding some aesthetics to the game that will allow it to match how people want to play. For example, if you don't want to sit through every cutscene and whatnot.
Little quality of life additions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They did say we'll get back to you in due course with the results of the survey, so we will be able to see what people actually answered after they go through it all. I do imagine that is going to be a tough thing to go through because a lot of the questions were not multiple choice. They were fill-in answers. So they have to actually read those and interpret what people are saying from over 45,000 responses.
So far, the only thing I'm really curious with the game is if they're going to be sticking with Project Octopath or if they've settled on a name for it yet.
That's true. That is a true thing. I'm curious if they go with it. I kind of dig it. It's such a Square type of name to go with,
I thought it's been fitting from the get-go.
Yeah, I like it. Especially if that rumor's true and Octopath is a anagram of the first letter of everyone's initials.
That would be an interesting little Easter egg they throw in there.
Just to note that Resident Evil Revelations is going to be an eShop only title in the UK. This is following up with the fact that apparently the game is only going to be, even the physical releases that we're getting in the rest of the world are only going to have the Revelations 1 on the cartridge itself. And you would have to go and download Revelations 2 anyway, even after buying it, which means memory cards, everybody. Again, really, that seems like to be a really big push now. So if you are getting it anyway, physically, you're going to have to download one. So I think they're just kind of cutting that out and just being like, you know what, why even bother selling a physical one and then download half the game or half the collection? It's an eShop only title here, which kind of makes sense with that considered, even though it does mean you can't get your Nintendo rewards points, and some people just like having a physical version.
In other news, too, I guess now, something that has come out from a recent release, I think in the last month this game was released, was Axiom Verge. It's come out that the publisher Badland Games, they're going to be donating 75% of the the shares from profit from this game to a special fund to help the creator of the game, Hap, help him with his son. I guess it came out that his son was diagnosed with jaundice at an early age, whenever he was just a few days old, and this led to other issues for impact his motor controls, hearing, and everything like that. So it came out that they were going to be doing this. Originally, they weren't going to announce this to make it look like they were doing it for marketing purposes, but rather just try and keep it on the down low. Definitely gotta say, this is a great move, though, on their part. This has been done before with games like That Dragon Cancer. I remember when that one came out, creator did the same thing whenever he released it. He made it to more as a coping mechanism, but then the proceeds from that game, from what I recall, helped to go to some funding with medical stuff on that. So it's definitely, it's a great thing to see. It's, because it's definitely something that no one would ever want to have to go through. But any kind of assistance they can get will most likely be gladly accepted to help them.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty touching move, and that's a serious contribution. I mean, that's 3/4 of all their share of the proceeds going to help this developer. So if anyone hasn't picked it up and you were on the fence, maybe you'll feel a little bit better about picking this up, even if you were unsure. Just knowing that, all right, it's going helping. It's helping go to a good cause at the same time. So why not make you feel a little bit better about anything that makes you feel better about buying another Switch game? We can get behind there. Right? And just finally in the news, we'll just say, be warned, November 24th, there's going to be some maintenance taking place. So while you're digesting your turkey and you are desperately grabbing for a controller to forget the stomach pains that you have, bear in mind that at 11:50 p.m. Pacific time on that's November 23rd to 2:30, we're going to 2:30 on November 24th. There's going to be maintenance, meaning that you're not going to have access to your Switch online. So if you're, it's 2.5 hours of not access to your Switch online. So keep that in mind, and don't throw your controller at the wall if you really wanted to play some Rocket League at that moment.
Get your downloads in now is what he's saying.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, honestly, because I am planning on downloading some games to play specifically at Thanksgiving with people, and I have to reinstall a couple of games. I had to delete a few to make room. So I have to reinstall Snipper Clips, because that's definitely something I'm showing people off tomorrow. And I never got to use the 4-player mode of Snipper Clips. And I think tomorrow is going to be my chance to do that. Mm-hmm. Now that I have 4 controllers total. So, all right, down the pipe. I was very excited to see Valkyria Chronicles 4 was announced to be coming to the Switch. Are you familiar with the Valkyria Chronicles series?
I've seen it. I know I've definitely seen these games. It's not one I've ever played, so I'm not too familiar with what the games are about. If you can give me a little kind of a rundown on it.
So my style. So it's kind of like an alternate history World War II scenario. There's no familiar countries, like it's not like Germany and Allies powers. But it is like these kind of tech/fantasy setting where there's tanks, but there's people who have special powers. But it's an action strategy game where you're going to move your units in battles. You take turns, you pick a character. While they're moving, depending on where you move, if they move across someone's line of fire, they're going to get shot at. So you try to end their movement behind cover. Then you take your action and you fire on enemies. There's different classes. You might have a tank who is like the center of your strategy. There's a little bit of a weapons triangle kind of thing between lancers, tanks, and soldiers. And but I love the style. It has that great design of the characters and that mix between World War I and it's kind of a steampunk. I guess that's the best description of it. It's a steampunk World War I setting with a little bit of magical stuff going on. And even though this is 4, this apparently takes place at the same time as like number 1. I don't think you're going to have to know what happened in the other Valkyrias to understand what's going here. It's kind of going back to the roots of the story before things did, I know, get pretty crazy in the sequels. So this is kind of back before things like got really weird with it.
Okay, so it's just a real good turn-based strategy is what you're saying here, though. It has a nice...
Yeah. It's kind of, I guess you could kind of say it's probably people will be familiar with the gameplay similar to Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Okay. It's in that world of style of gameplay.
Just without Rabbids. Got it.
Right. Some other titles we got. Musinks Musinx. Mucinex.
Yeah, that's what I kept reading it as.
Yes. This is Musinx. This is by the studio who made Super Beat Sonic. It's coming out next year. This is another rhythm-based action game. I see the main character on the cover of it has holding a pair of laser guns. I don't know if that's actually going to work into the gameplay.
So yeah, we have another one. We have is Phantom Break Battlegrounds Overdrive. Now this is a game that comes from the Xbox 360 era. It was on the, if I remember right, it was on Xbox 360. It may have been Xbox One, but it's been on the some other consoles, PS Vita and PC. It's kind of a classic arcade beat 'em up from what I remember on it. This does have 4-player simultaneous online that you can do, so you can get in there with your friends and just go through and beat up the bad guys, collect the coins. It plays through about 8 levels, give or take, where you'll level up and learn new moves that make you more powerful. What I do know too, the Switch version will be getting some special guest characters. Makisi Kirusu, I think, and Frau, or how you pronounce their names, from Steins Gate and Robotic Notes, I believe is what those are from. It looks like for the the notes on this game, and we should be seeing this one come out sometime early here in December.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, it looks like a pretty over-the-top brawler like that, and I like the art style. It kind of reminds me of that. Oh, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was like Power Level 1 Million or something like that. It was like a little pixel art movie that came out a while back that just had really cool brawler action going on here. So yeah, this looks pretty cool. 4 players though. That's going to be awesome. Plus, it doesn't look like you have a ton of space. It looks like it's pretty concentrated.
Very crowded, it looks like. Kind of like the old, what was it, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games where you get on your old Super Nintendo with your friends.
Yes, right. Bluehole. These are the studio behind PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which, are you familiar with that?
I'm a little bit familiar with PlayerUnknown. I know that was also one of the games that we saw that got a nomination for Game of the Year this last year. And from what I know about it, it's kind of a Hunger Game-esque style gameplay of trying to survive as long as you can against all the other players.
Yes.
Definitely looks like an interesting game to play.
It is a huge phenomenon online right now. Basically, players get dropped into a map. The map is constantly constricting, so as players off each other, the arena gets crunched together, and you kind of have to always be moving because you want to outrun the border as it closes in, because you'll die if you get outside of it. But yeah, it's a huge phenomenon. People have been love streaming it. This is not the game that's coming to Switch, but this hit game, it has fueled the company immensely, and they have pledged that they will be making a new original IP game for the Switch, which, I mean, is just a pretty cool thing that they may be. I'm sure they're going to go, though, in the same genre that has given them this great success. You know, I don't think they're going to make this exact, but they might do something similar. It could be a good multiplayer online experience like that, some FPS experience. I think that would be their best direction to go in. It's what they know. It's what their people probably are hungry for to see on a console. Anyway, so that's not coming for a little while. It's just kind of announced. Maybe we'll see it next year for lucky. We also got Galgun 2 coming spring 2018. Galgun, let's see, you go around and girls are throwing themselves at you and you have to shoot this gun that I can't it looks like it takes off their clothes. This is a game. This is a game that's coming to Switch.
This sounds like, and you know, I know it's already released in Japan.
Yes.
Now I'm curious, how is this getting past the censors here in our Western market? This
is coming from Inti Creates.
Okay.
They do call it a infamous shooter game, and I mean, I guess because it just takes them down to their underwear. I guess it's not actual nudity. It's possible that it will be allowable and just have like a mature rating on it. So that's something that's coming out.
Okay.
I mean, this is the series. We have characters from it in Blaster Master, so I guess they want to bring all those IPs over here.
Okay. Well, and you know, there's probably a market for it here. I can't say I'm going to be purchasing it, but it definitely has a market somewhere.
You can't say that you're purchasing it because we'll judge, but we know that you are.
It'll be on my other account. And then finally, we have a special 2-game pack coming for Europe, for the European market here in January. It looks like Sega is making their first collection for the Switch. It'll include Puyo Puyo Tetris, which came as a huge hit for the Switch. I think it did incredibly well, bringing back Puyo Puyo to into the mainstream again. And then it'll also be combined with Sonic Forces. Now, from what I've seen on Sonic Forces, maybe trying to package together, trying to salvage what they can. I'm not sure. I haven't had too much playtime with it myself, but I haven't heard all the greatest things about it. But it is coming early January, January 5th, and it looks like it's priced at about right there at £50 for Americans here who use the dollar. It's at about $66.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, that's a pretty good deal. And, I mean, it's two great, technically three if you count Puyo and Tetris as two separate games. You're technically getting 3 games in this two-pack.
We do.
So that's pretty cool. And, this is probably a setup for things to come in the future. Look, Switch hasn't been out that long, and you're already getting these little collector packs here for pretty good deals. $50 for 2 games, 3 games. Nice. Very nice. And with that, let's move into the new releases. Just to remind you guys what came out this week, we have The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, Reeve Ultimate Edition, VVVVVVV, Ginger Beyond the Crystal, Xenoraid, not Xenoblade, the Neo Geo Carnov, the Axiom Verge Physical Edition, Gear Club Unlimited, which also has a day 1 update, so if you pick that up, make sure you download that. Rhythm Games Super Beat Sonic, Dead Synchronicity Tomorrow Comes Today, MXGP3, the official motocross video game, Unbox Newbie's Adventure, which I did get a review copy of, and I did not have time to review for this. I did not have time to go over the review this episode. I will definitely get that in next week, though. Urnog Unlimited. That's not a misspelling. That is how the game is named. Urnog Unlimited. Battle Chef Brigade and Green Game, Time Swapper, and Aces of the Luftwaffe Squadron.
Wow, and so that's, like I said, it's just great to see all these different games coming out. It's just definitely building up that backlog for people here. Coming out today, Worms, WMD, Stick It to the Man, Transcripted, Neo Geo Soccer Brawl, Kid Trip, and Mantis Burn Racing. And then coming out on Friday, so you'll have to wait till after the maintenance to download it, we have Crimson Land.
November 28th, we get the Resident Evil Revelations, both 1 or 2 separate, and the collection that has both of them. And then November 30th, we have Siberia 2 and Star Ghost. And don't forget, guys, next Friday, Xenoblade Chronicles. That's the next really big Nintendo title. So I think JV is going to be getting that one. I have decided I'm going to focus elsewhere. And you know what? Besides, it doesn't pay for us both to always play the exact same games. I think it'd be best if we split our interests. And he is very interested in it, and I'm just wary if it's my style of RPG. All right, so let's go into the community pulse and field some questions from the listeners. Our first one is a topic posed by Shane Murray. I've been thinking about old franchises I'd like to see brought back to life on Switch, like Billy Hatcher or Beautiful Joe. That'd be great. We always kind of get asked, this is a pretty common question, what old franchises we'd like to see brought back to life, either from Nintendo or something that we just haven't seen on Nintendo before. What's your kind of pet series of games that you would like to see come over?
Something I'd love to see, which will never happen because of the, what's come of this company, but it would be to see something like the old Diddy Kong Racing come back.
Okay.
If we could somehow get Rare or what has become of Rare to come over to Nintendo and get the IPs back, I'd love to see, that it definitely felt like a game that could, combat Mario Kart even, because it just felt like it offered a little bit more than just you going and doing race. It had that adventure mode and everything. It had these fun characters, these different styles of plays. You know, they were doing you can race with a plane, you can race in a go-kart, you can race in a hovercraft before Mario Kart even brought those things in. This was back in the N64 days. And so that'd be a game I'd definitely love to see, would be something like Diddy Kong Racing come back.
Very cool. Okay. I have a couple of usual answers for this. Right now, I have to say .hack, because they just came out with a new kind of a reboot of the series, and that's on PC and I think it's on certain consoles. But I would like to play that, and I will only get to play it on Switch. It's just, like, I literally just went back, like, last week, I made a cube draft of the .hack CCG that maybe, like, 50 people ever played, and me and my friends still keep alive, and we made a cube draft, and we are going to have a night where we hand out little booster packs and still play the .hack card game, because it actually was a surprisingly cool card game. And that's just how level I am, and I would love to get back into it, but right now it's the new reboot is not on Switch, so I would highly prioritize that coming here. Other than that, I would like to see maybe... one of my favorite games of all time is Final Fantasy Tactics. I do think that maybe the advanced ones would have a good place on Switch. Those were a little easier and a little more, lighter weight games. I think that might appeal to the Switch fan base. They could be easily eShop titles.
That would be good to see again. You're right. And a question posted here by Robert Andujar. What is the most disappointing game you've played? Not the worst game, but disappointing.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to limit this to Switch, or are we going to go in general?
I think the intent is Switch.
That's still, and it's definitely with the life of, with the young life. There hasn't been a lot of games that made a lot of big promises and didn't deliver. Of course, you have I didn't play it personally, but like people getting upset with, say, like FIFA, and issues with like games like the NBA games. But probably for me, it was Street Fighter 2. That was a game that I had a lot of hope for. I picked it up when it came out. And I'm not going to say it's a great game. I remember that was a game I grew up playing on my Super Nintendo, Super Street Fighter 2 Ultra Edition, that I had. And it definitely brought me back to that. But at the same time, I felt like it didn't deliver what it could have. It had the same feel, but I feel like it added anything really to keep me in it. It just felt like I can go and I can pull out my Super Nintendo that I have lying around somewhere in a box and just plug in that and play the exact same game.
Okay, that's cool. For me, and I know you said it's not like the worst, but it was the most disappointing for me, was probably 1-2 Switch, because I did have hopes that would be the cool party game I was going to take everywhere, and I was really hoping that to be this great, show off what the Switch is all about kind of game, and it didn't live up to the place in the Switch library that I thought it was going to fit in. I thought it was going to be the Wii Sports of Switch, because I remember how crazy fun everyone had showing off Wii Sports. People came over my house, didn't want to play Zelda or Mario. We all just wanted to play bowling and baseball. I was hoping this would bring that back to my life like it was back then, but it didn't. Other than that, I have been pretty happy with everything that everything I wanted to be good has been good. So there's no real disappointments for me. Everything that I've played, everything I've played that wasn't great, I did not expect to be great. Like Fate Extella, I did not like that game at all, but I did not expect it to be great. So it's probably not gonna, it didn't disappoint me. All right. I have a Twitter one. Okay, here's one from non-SCPO. He wrote, if someone loves playing games on the go, but can't find any one title that they can use to justify purchasing the Nintendo Switch this holiday, what argument would you make for them to go out and purchase one this Black Friday?
That, well, definitely first, we don't, have they even released kind of what kind of deals we might be seeing? I know definitely we'll be seeing some deals on the games, but I don't know if we've seen anything on the Switch. Definitely there'll probably be some bundles out there you can get, but probably the argument to make comes down to is,
I think, here's the thing. All he said was, if you can't find any one title to justify purchases, I never use one title to justify a purchase. I use many titles, and honestly, that's the thing. It's a lot of the reasons to buy it isn't like, look, there's going to be people who aren't interested in Mario Odyssey. That's just a fact. It's just not going to appeal to 100%, closer to 98%. But still, it's the fact that there's so many eShop games that even if it's not like, oh, this is a single reason to buy it. No, but it's like there's like 5 or 6 of these games, and they're all pretty cheap and they're pretty fun. They're great experiences. They keep coming out. You can get like 5 Neo Geo games, just put them on there. I would say just show them the eShop, let them peruse through that and not need one title. Let them find like 6 budget titles that they're going to get a ton of play out of. And that's what sells me on it. Honestly, I've spent way more time with games on the eShop than I have. Like I spent this week, I was playing as much time with Ittle Dew 2, which is also, a nice affordable eShop title, but it also has the physical release. But then I also played Count Lucanor, which is a pure cheap experience on the eShop. These are the titles that made it really worth it to me. It's just getting this whole cornucopia of great, well-curated indie Switch titles.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to echo that. I've, definitely the library, the vastness of it, where it's getting to now is definitely what's making this a system that should definitely be considered. Especially if you travel a lot, you don't have the ability to take a PlayStation, to take an Xbox with you anywhere you go. And so being able to sit down and play, even, you got your budget titles like your Neo Geo games, your cheaper games, like, and Kamiko, I think it's like a $3 or $4 game. You can play that over and over again because that's the whole purpose of games like that. It's a speedrun game. Or if you are going to splurge a little bit, pick you up a Skyrim, pick you up Breath of the Wild, Mario, pick those games up. And you have these full AAA games that can bring you hours and hours and hours of gameplay. And it's all in the palms of your hand.
Yeah, I still can't put down Stardew Valley. The Switch has become my Stardew Valley machine that I begrudgingly put other games on that I want to review for the show.
Now, are you going to move out of your house, JV or KC, and are you going to move out of your house, KC, and go and start a farm?
No, I don't have a great dead grandpa who left me any deeds anywhere. Sadly,
we can make something work.
Okay, sounds good. Oh, and just finally, a comment from Mr. Brooks. He wrote, I just want to say that I enjoy L.A. Noire a lot. Never played it before, and it's a really good game. I hope that it sells well so that Rockstar brings more games over. Great podcast. Keep it up. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Just thought I'd leave the episode on a little positive note like that there. And I think that will be bringing our show to a close. So I just want to thank you, Sean, for joining us this evening and filling in for our chipmunk-faced co-host.
And I thank you for having me on here. It's definitely glad to be able to help out, especially when a friend is feeling bad for whatever reason that he's down.
Yeah, yes. And just wanted to also thank all of our great patrons, not just Sean here, who have supported us on patreon.com/theswitchcast. If anyone is listening and they also want to help us make this show better and help us pick up more equipment and other stuff we do to make this great community overall, you go there, you can pledge $1, $2, $5 a month, whatever you're comfortable with, and you'll be pitching in. I like to give thanks and shout outs to everybody who helps us there. But you can also, the $0 way to help us out, please guys, help us out with some reviews on either the Apple Podcast app or on whatever other podcast provider you listen to us through, whether it's Stitcher, Google Play. Those ratings are what puts us up in the search results. It helps people find us, and we really just want more people to listen to us. With that said, you can just tell people about us too. That also helps get more people to listen. Again, we're not just a podcast. We are a whole community. We have a great Facebook group, a Twitter, and a Discord chat with lots of people like this guy. Your handle on there. What's your handle on Discord?
I think it's Swilly, so S-Willy.
Yes, so you'll see him as well as me, JV, and a whole bunch of other great guys all the time just talking about Switch stuff and sometimes going off topic about random stuff. Thank you, HeatleyBros, for the theme music, and Health Protodome and Will Rock for the closer. Until next time, everybody.
Switch it up.